It's part one of our conversation with the great Bruce Sudano. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music. Bruce is a lot more than just Donna Summer's widower husband. He was involved in the music industry a long time before we actually heard Donna Summer's name, playing with Alive and Kicking, Brooklyn Dreams, and a lot of other acts, involved in both sides of the industry, co-writing songs with Donna and a lot more. Here's part one of our conversation with Bruce Sudano. What was your contribution to Bad Girls?
Bad Girls, there was another friend of ours from Brooklyn, a very good friend of ours who grew up with us, who had a recording studio in Burbank. His name was Bob Inky Incorvia, and he had a studio in Burbank called Magic Wand. Whenever we wanted to write, he would have downtime in the studio like at night. So me, Donna, Joe, and Eddie would go over there, 10 o'clock at night sometimes, and just set up mics, set up the acoustic guitars, and just jam. And so Bad Girls was an idea that Donna had for a while, because there was all these issues of the secretaries coming, got a Casablanca Records on Sunset Boulevard, and there was the body shop where the ladies of the night used to work, and the secretaries used to get confused, and it was, guys would honk the horns at the secretaries, and so we had this, Donna really had this idea, I want to write a song about this. So Bad Girls, we were just sitting around the mic, and Donna started singing, and we were playing, and so we had, and it was just one of a lot of songs that we had put down on that session, and it was on a half-inch tape. We would just put on the half-inch machine and let it run and record whatever we would come up with. And sometime later, a second engineer in the studio was going to take down what was on the tapes to write on the box. And he came to us and said, there's this thing Bad Girls on. It's really cool. You should listen to it. And so then listened to it. And then, I went in and kind of, I would do this with Don a lot on certain songs where I would go in and just like form all the stream of consciousness things that were sung and put them into, and add a line here to tie up the bow. And so that's kind of how Bad Girls was written, and when I do it live, I always, in the middle of the song, I say something like, I don't want any copyright infringement. But when we were writing Bad Girls, I was listening a lot to the Isley Brothers, and I go into Who's That Lady, and I just show the similarities of Who's That Lady and Bad Girls and like that. So
I always notice that when you meet couples and you ask them how they met, everyone lights up. You ever notice that when you say, "Hey, how'd you guys meet at a party?" Yeah, they light up. What was your first impression of Donna when you met her? Did you click? Did you know about her? I mean, she was the Love to Love You baby girl at that point. You met her in 77, right?
Met her in 77. Yeah, and we kind of clicked instantaneously because we were staying at our friend Susan Mineo, who was the VP at Casablanca Records, who was also a girl that grew up with us in Brooklyn. She was VP of publicity at Casablanca. So the three of us didn't have an apartment because the story is we're supposed to move back to New York to record the album, and then we gave over apartments, and they said, no, you're recording in L.A. So anyway, we stayed with Susan for a week or two until we can get new places. And Donna came over to visit. She was learning how to drive, stopped over to visit Susan, who was the head of publicity at Casablanca. And me, Joe, and Eddie were there, and we met her and instantaneously started writing songs, and we clicked immediately. And
but you'd been in the business, but Bruce, you'd been in the business long enough at that point where you didn't look at her and say, "Oh my God, it's Donna Summer," because you'd been in the business for a little while, right?
No, quite the contrary. I mean, obviously I knew Love to Love You, Baby, but at the time, and just meeting her, I didn't give a whole lot of credence to her or that song.
Right.
Many people at that point kind of thought it was a novelty because nobody understood at that point the depth and breadth of her abilities. And I certainly was in that camp, But obviously, I was very quickly made aware of how great she was, and the four of us were quite a team, and we had a really good time together for a long time,
You talk about moving fast. When you were just describing there, we were looking for a place to stay. We were going over there. And then you said, well, I moved to LA before that. And I'm going, to most people, that would be like way too much transitions. But when you're hungry and young, I guess, and have a dream, were you stressed out, or was just that I got to get it done back then?
Oh, yeah, I just had to get it done. I was on fire, this is what I wanted. And it's also a thing because I had a co-writer back in Brooklyn we wrote a lot of songs together. And, when I was running from pillar to post, I'd be like, come on, man, let's go. And I didn't understand. And he said this, it's something that has always stayed with me. He was like, look, Bruce, leave me alone. I'm happy where I am. And I was like, oh, I had to understand that everybody that wanted to write a song, they weren't going to go to the extreme that I was going to go to make my career happen. They were like, I'll write a song with you, but I'm not going to, run around the world and don't want to sacrifice whatever it takes, because it takes sacrifice and commitment and all of that.
That's why I mentioned it, because I said, no, I got to get a little bit more from him, because that is so foreign to Evelyn Everybody sometimes and Joe Lunchbucket. Not to downplay anybody's simple life, but that's foreign to most people. Yeah. More information on Bruce in the description of this video. Make sure you comment on our video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music.